Welcome to the meeting of the Environment Committee for Tuesday, June 26, 2018. I'll call the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda has been approved. Next item on the agenda is the minutes. Any changes or corrections from last time?
Nope, I'll move the minutes, Chair. Rummel.
Thank you.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes have been approved. We have 6 items on the business section of the meeting, and we'll start with 2018-173. And Mike, is it Marinas? Marinas. Thank you. You're going to walk us through the extension of the nitrate salt and odor control services.
Yes,
Welcome,
I am.
Mike.
Good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
council members and chairwoman. This is for business item 2018-173. The proposed action is for the Met Council to authorize its regional administrator to issue a sole source extension of a purchase order to Evaqua Water Technologies, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $2.5 million to provide nitrate salts, odor control equipment, and odor control services at a unit price of basically 72 cents a pound. To the Interceptor Services Business Unit, or ISBU as we refer to them, for the period of August 31st, 2018 to August 31st, 2019. Background on this: the ISBU conveyance system collects and conveys wastewater through its 600 plus miles of interceptor sewers from the various communities we serve in the metro area to MCS wastewater treatment plants. Evaqua will provide nitrate salt solution and odor control equipment and services to help minimize the odorous impacts of conveying wastewater through the communities we serve and assist in reducing the corrosive impacts of the wastewater on our conveyance system. The rationale or background on this: a purchase order was issued in 2015 to Evaqua Water Technologies, Inc. for a period of 2 years with an option to renew for 1 additional year. The current procurement will end August 31st, 2018. A little more information on the background. Typically for contracts like this contract or this request is for an extension beyond the original contract period. Typically, we start the procurement process well in advance of the expiration of a contract like this. In this case, we had the retirement of a couple of key managers in the ISBU right about the time that we should be beginning the work for the new contract to be initiated. By the time we had the new managers on board and up to speed, we did not have adequate time to go through the competitive bid process to award a new contract. So this contract extension will allow that time, allow the opportunity for the competitive bidding process, and allow us to implement and issue a new multi-year contract. In regards to the Thrive lens analysis, this action advances the Thrive outcome of stewardship. Public financial resources will be invested efficiently and effectively to provide and maintain the Interceptor Services infrastructure, which protects the region's natural resources. Funds are available in the annual operating budget of the Interceptor Services Business Unit to cover the cost of these materials and services. With that, I'd be glad to entertain any questions.
Committee members, questions?
I mean, I haven't opened it up, but I'm assuming I read my stuff. Is this the engineering contract for the sewer?
No.
No.
This is
Okay.
nitrates.
Okay, all right.
We'll let you give you a minute to get caught up here.
Yeah.
We're on the first agenda item. Here, you want to?
Council
I'll
members,
get it. Hey, what's
are there
up?
any questions for
No.
Mike?
I would move approval.
Yeah, and I'd second it too.
We have a motion and a second.
Wait for.
Mike, thank you very
Thank you.
much. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion has been adopted. The next item on the agenda is 2018-174, and this is the Municipal Inflow and Infiltration Grant Program. And Matt, yes?
Selmeyer's a silent G.
Silent G, Selmeyer, all
Forget
right.
silent G's okay to call me too.
Thank you, welcome, Matt.
Thank you.
This is, you've got the mic.
Thank you. Madam Chair and council members, my name is Matt Selmeyer and I am the administrator for the Inflow and Infiltration Grant Program, also known as the I&I Grant Program in Environmental Services. I'm here today with business item 2018-174, and I am requesting 2 amendments to the 2017 I&I Grant Program guidelines. Before going over these 2 amendments, I would like to thank Metro Cities for advocating for legislative funding for the I&I Grant Program. As a reminder, Metro Cities successfully advocated for funding in the 2017 legislative session, which appropriated $3.739 million for grants to cities to reduce I&I into the Metropolitan Council's sanitary sewer disposal system. Today I'm coming to you with outstanding news, which is that in May of 2018, Metro Cities successfully advocated for another $5 million of funding for I&I reduction grants. This funding will greatly help our I&I grant program participants who have projected $50 million in I&I reduction projects between 2017 and 2019. Of the projected $50 million in project costs, we have calculated that $14 million is eligible for funding in our 2017 I&I grant program. Given these additional funds, I am requesting that we make 2 amendments to the I&I grant program guidelines, which were approved by the Environment Committee last August. The 2 amendments are underlined in Attachment A, and I will go over them now. The first proposed change is to increase the Part 1 allocation from $25,000 to $50,000. As a reminder, in the allocation process, MCES reimburses the first $25,000 of each community's eligible I&I reduction costs in the Part 1 allocation, which helps smaller communities with lower cost projects. After that, MCES uses a weighted average to reimburse any remaining eligible I&I reduction costs in the Part 2 allocation. Given that the legislature appropriated an additional $5 million to reduce I&I costs, I am proposing that we increase the Part 1 allocation from $25,000 to $50,000. The second proposed change is to resolicit for participation in the 2017 I&I grant program. There are currently 80 communities that are eligible for the I&I grant program. Of these 80 communities, 50 communities applied to the 2017 I&I grant program last fall and were accepted. The other 30 communities did not apply, and I would like to use this opportunity to re-solicit for participation so MCES can help as many communities as possible. And with that, I would like to open up for any questions or comments.
Thank you. Council members. Councilmember Schreiber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm assuming this action today has the full support of the Metropolitan Cities organization.
Yes, Madam Chair, council members, I spoke with Patty Nauman, and she is on the same page in supporting these changes.
And just to clarify, this is for the cities to work on their own pipes. There is no way that we can use public money to help homes with their connection to the municipal pipes. I'm not using the right terms, but you know what I mean.
You're right.
Yes, that's correct. These are state bond funds for local cities that are going to be using the money. There's 6 types of work, but yes, pipes, manhole covers, that sort of thing to reduce I&I into our system.
Right. That's good.
Other questions or?
I support the motion. I support the issue.
So are you moving the item?
Oh, yes, I move
And
it.
then I would second.
We have a motion and a second.
Pipes and moving.
This is good news. Help the cities out. So obviously, it's important work that has to be done. All those in favor, we have a motion and a second. All
Aye.
those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion prevails. Thank you very much.
Did you call?
The third item on our business portion is 218-175, which is also about inflow and infiltration, and it's a demonstration project. And Marcus Bush is going to walk us through that. And Kyle Colvin, too. Oh,
Thank you,
yeah.
Madam Chair. Good afternoon, members of the committee. Most of you know my name is Kyle Coleman. I'm a manager in the Engineering Programs Group in Environmental Services, and here with me today making the presentation is Marcus Bush. He's a principal engineer, also works within the Engineering Programs Group. He currently is responsible for administering the council's regional I&I mitigation program, and will also serve as the project manager for the demonstration project grant program. I'll begin with just a little bit of the program background in terms of the council's I&I activities, which leads to a recommendation, or kind of concludes in a recommendation that was made in 2016 from a community task force that we had. Most of you know that starting in 2004, the council started measuring wastewater flows that in some cases resulted in assigned work plans to communities in 2007. Since 2003, the council has convened 3 individual separate I&I task forces. The first one was in 2004. That task force was what created the inception of the council's I&I program. Then in 2010, at the prompting of a couple of communities, there was another task force that was convened to address the sunset clause that was in the original I&I program. It was decided that in lieu of sunsetting the original I&I program, it would convert to an ongoing I&I, regional I&I program to continue until such a time when the council feels that an adequate or a significant amount of excess flow was removed from the system, and no longer we needed to be concerned about the impact that wet weather had on the local and regional collection system. So then in 2016, we had the last task force that was convened. The purpose of that was really to suggest improvements to the council's I&I mitigation program, to address and come up with strategies that specifically address private property sources, but also to take a look at what we're doing in terms of the public infrastructure side of the program. So in 2016, the task force report was approved by the council. It included 8 recommendations, and one of those recommendations was for the MCS to design and implement a private property I&I mitigation demonstration project that would provide additional opportunity for measurement and impact on wastewater base and peak flows. And so here today is our proposed demonstration project. That I'll turn it over to Marcus.
Thank you, Kyle.
As Kyle said, we've been working on this for a while, and I think we've come here back in 2016, and I think in January, Janine and I did an information item to the effect that we were going to be working on this as well. And again, this grant is to support funding of a project that demonstrates a reproducible approach to address I&I, which adds the current knowledge base that we all know that working on I&I is good for the sustainability of the system. So the goals themselves are really at the high level. We're looking to demonstrate the effectiveness of the techniques used for I&I mitigation. Generally, we know, it's close the sources of I&I, more or less, but we want to prove locally that it works, have a local database or a local project to work from, and it's something that the task force asked us to do. And again, one of the major drivers of this is that other regional communities would be able to use this demonstration project, take the results, and use that in their own system, so adding to the value of those dollars throughout the communities. What we would ideally look for is something like this. For any given rain amount, you see before and after how much gets into the wastewater system. So to do that, typically a community would identify their sources of I&I. They would start monitoring the flows. They do some work, monitor again, evaluate, and this takes a couple of years to do. And so this kind of study we're planning to go through around the end of 2021. So we're giving them whichever community is selected would have 3 years to do so. And this is one of 2 things that we still have to do from that meeting that we talked in January when we had an information item. So basically this and studying the effects of the I&I program are the 2 open items we're still working on. The Selection criteria, we went over quite a bit. We wanted to be as objective as we could. We're selecting a community for this. We wanted to make it available to as many communities as possible. So what's most important is that the proposals that come in, we're going to be looking at them for quality and value. How well is it going to work, and how could this project benefit the other regional communities? On top of that, the ability to complete on schedule. Again, this takes a lot of time for a community to take on. And so we're looking at around 15% of the points, or actually 15% of the points, just basically saying, can you complete this in 3 years? Do you have the staff and the time and resources to do that? If you did have a couple of communities that both had 80 out of the 100 points available, there would also be the effectiveness. We know that there's a performance indicator of the age of housing. Housing stock that's older than around 1970 typically has higher rates of I&I. So we've made a priority towards older housing stock. And finally, with financial need, in this situation, if communities are doing the work in an area of their community that's below their median home value, then we prioritize that as well. So those points are available to all communities. It just comes down to who proposes the best project to get the work done. What this would include is the flow monitoring itself, the sewer repairs, evaluation, and the reporting over a couple of years. And the guidelines state that there has to be at least 50% of the project cost being done by the community. Our estimates is that a project like this would cost over $1 million, and so that's the grant funding is for $500,000 to one community to do the project. Proposed schedule, there is one change to this. You see in the third line, August 2018. On page 2 of attachment A, I had an error written August 15th, 2018 for proposals due. So we'd be doing August 31st, 2018, which would align with the other I&I grant program, making it a little more seamless for communities to do both applications at the same time. But at the end of the day, by the end of 2018, award and notice to proceed, so the community could start work in the spring of 2019. Where this comes into play is that we have both sustainability and stewardship. As we all have heard many times about I&I, a lot of it is the sustainability of our wastewater system, both locally and regionally. More so, the information and knowledge from this demonstration project can be shared throughout the region, increasing the value of that investment. So the proposed action today is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to approve the guidelines for an inflow and infiltration demonstration project grant as described in attachment A for up to $500,000. If there are any questions, I'll take those now.
So would the people who apply for this be those same 80 people that are eligible, or can it be any community?
That's a really good question. What we decided to do was to open it up to any community that discharges to the Metropolitan disposal system. There is a potential that any community out there might have a positive strategy, and if they have the best project idea, then they should be able to get the funding for it. We recognize too, though, that most communities that are already eligible for the other funding are the ones with programs that are going on and may already have the staff and whatnot in place to get that done.
Councilmember Molander?
So what is when you use the term private, what does that mean?
So we got basically the public infrastructure and the private infrastructure. So a lot of the I&I grants that we have so far are related to doing work on public property. So the sewer mains, the maintenance holes, those things. We recognize, and the task force recognized, that a big unquantified and unresolved part of the system is over half of that system is on the private property side. So areas that would be typically maintained upstream of the sewer main, so leading from a house down to the sewer main. And the hope with this is to quantify how much is actually coming out of those areas.
So we're going to do individual households?
The community that wins the grant would figure out a way to address households. Is that right?
Yes, they'd be able to do work on both the public and the private side. The funding for this doesn't come out of the MWC, it's from the levy funds as well.
So once we get this grant, we do the study, then what are we going to do with the findings?
Part of the project is that one of the requirements is that the proposal would have to tell us how they're going to report it and provide that report according to the schedule that's on there. Based on that, we'd be able to say, okay, there's this much reduction, this is how much it cost, this is a realistic return on your investment for the other communities, and or this strategy worked better than that strategy, those kind of things.
So then we'll use the findings to encourage other communities to, consider this?
to figure out a way to also address the other side of I&I.
Communities have spent, since the beginning of the I&I program, recording back to 2007, in some respects 2004 with the look back credits, we have over $165 million invested by communities, most of which is in the public side. I could look up the exact dollars, but a very small portion of it's on the private side. Most communities have invested on the public, partially because they need more proof that it works and to reduce the risk of working on that side.
Other questions? So with a rainy June like we're having now, this is really timely, as our climate seems to be getting wetter, and at least in bursts, the I&I issue becomes more important.
Yeah, thanks for that segue. That's perfect. Yeah, and most of the I&I program thus far is focused on the peak flows. The peak flows, the excessive I&I. As we design the system, we have to be focused on that peak amount. That's our big cost driver and also our chance of sewer overflow. We hope this study can look at both peak and base flow as well.
Other questions? Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a comment. We've had a couple of grant programs in the past that cities could use for repairing those service laterals, and it's been very difficult to get consistent funding. We had some leftover funding from another program that we used for that, and then we got a one-time appropriation from the legislature. But in order to get people to really believe that this is going to make a difference, we need this data that actually measures the before and after, because all of these other projects that we've done, while they've been greatly received by the community, have not had that before and after monitoring. So I'm really hopeful that we can get a good applicant that will provide us with the information we need so that we can have ongoing sources of funding, and so that cities can realize that if that doesn't necessarily have to be a match from us, they could go 50-50 with a homeowner and have the benefit to the community as well.
Very good point. Thank you. Other council member questions? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion has been approved. Thank you. Moving right along, item 2018-176 deals with the contract for an interceptor study, and Marcus Bush and Kyle going to take care of that too. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, again, my purpose here is to kind of bring a little bit of the background to the project and this business item, and then Marcus will get into kind of the details of the proposed interceptor study. Just in context, the city of Minneapolis and the flow that's generated upstream of the city of Minneapolis represents a very significant part of the total flow that comes into the Metropolitan treatment plant. Flow, including, in addition to Minneapolis, there's a total of 21 communities that actually generate flow, the flow into Minneapolis into the treatment plant, and that represents about 2/3 of the total flow to the plant. Those 21 communities are located in 3 separate counties, and the total flow represents a population served of just about 1 million people. So it's a fairly significant part of the regional system. And so reflective of that, the 2018 approved capital program actually identifies a total of $142 million in capital improvements and studies specifically focused on this part of the regional system. And that again is a 6-year CIP total of $142 million. The purpose of this study is to measure and evaluate system flows within Minneapolis, within the regional system, and possibly within the city of Minneapolis system itself. Marcus will elaborate on how this information will be used to inform both us and the city in terms of how system flows react out there to the wet weather. The findings of this report will update information and data that was collected back in 2002. The council did a somewhat similar type of project to evaluate wet weather-related flows to the system. However, since the last 16 years, there's been a lot of changes in terms of regional flow. We've seen regional flow decrease a little bit over time. That's partially due to probably water conservation and I&I mitigation efforts within those 21 communities. Also, there's been some growth that has occurred within that service district as well. And I think with that, I'll turn it over to Marcus.
All right, thank you. Probably could have put this slide up before. Sorry about that. So as Kyle mentioned, this is an image of just our interceptors that are inside the bounds of the city of Minneapolis, reaching out to those 21 communities. The goals of the study, when we talk about this big picture, we're looking to reduce the risk of sewer overflow. And that overflow, we're reducing it from the potential to go to public waters and the risk of that going and being discharged, backing up into a building. And we're doing this to increase the reliability of the system. Again, this is the part of the system that quite a bit of flow comes through, and that all goes through St. Paul to the Metro plan. So the study goals are to identify those areas of high inflow and infiltration. You can kind of hear a theme with the presentations today. And then identify areas with limited sewer capacity. And by doing that, we'll be able to develop some strategies to lower the risk of sewer overflows. Evaluating the alternatives through this study and prioritizing future investments will allow us to make informed decisions and be able to save hopefully quite a few dollars over the period of time that we're talking about. I believe that we're looking to project out to around 2050 with sewer flows with this study. In the Thrive lens, the public financial resources will be invested efficiently and effectively to maintain conveyance assets, which protect the region's natural resources. From the side of stewardship, I think in sustainability, I think it's really important that a quantitative analysis of the flow conditions and how the critical interceptors allow for responsive planning to preserve capacity in the region, allow for future growth, and in the long term, just make a more reliable system that we've quantitatively looked at. We did receive 4 responsive bids, all of which met the MCUB goal commitment, and the selected vendor, based on the evaluation panel led by procurement, offered the highest value proposal for this study. So the proposed action today is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to award and execute the contract for the Minneapolis Interceptor Study, project number 807650, contract 18P047, with HDR Engineering Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $6 million over a 5-year period. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Questions?
So remember, Wolf, this is where I thought you were on the agenda when you came in here.
I know. We weren't that fast.
So I do have a question. So,
Councilmember
so we
Melandri.
had 4 numbers, 4 bids. This group was at the lowest?
This, I believe, was in the middle, actually. It was based on the value, both the quality and responsiveness of the bid, and then based on what we would get out of the value of the dollars for that.
Are you at liberty to say who the other 3 engineering groups are?
That's a good question. I'm going to look at Kyle and Janine on that one.
I would need to check on that, and
Well, that's fine.
I
That's
could
fine.
get back with you.
I'd be curious. Go ahead. And it just seemed, it just seemed like an awful lot of money. That's why when I came in here, I just wanted to ask those questions. So, and I'd be curious too on just, how this, I'm assuming it's kind of this subjective analysis that happens, or is it objective, or? And listen, I'm okay with not going with the lowest bid if in fact there's greater value. I'm very comfortable with that. I'm just kind of curious on what the criteria is.
Sure.
And you don't have to tell me now.
No, if
Just
I may.
blast off an email or something. I think the rest of the group would like to know too. If not, you
Absolutely.
should.
Absolutely. And I think Marcus could give you the overview of the categories that
Sure.
were considered.
Yeah, I may actually be able to answer.
No, you don't have to do that now.
Um,
I'm just curious.
He could.
Can I humor you?
Yeah.
Yeah, humor him.
Anyway.
Can I grade you that?
That would be great. So the study itself, when we talk about the scope and especially about the budget, does seem like a pretty high number. As Kyle mentioned, the just 6 years of capital from MCS side alone is 142 million.
Yeah.
We're projecting out around 30 years from now. The city of Minneapolis also, in just their area themselves, they're doing about $5 million alone in just I&I work, aside from everything else. I was at a conference this spring talking to another municipal wastewater regional provider. Because they're under consent decree, they did a similar study for around $40 million. The ability for us to be able to manage our system ahead of any type of consent decree allows us to actually get a pretty good value for how much we spend on studies like this instead of being mandated to do them. And I also want to mention that the estimate for the project budget wasn't released to the contractors when they sent in their bids, their proposals. The estimate for how much this would cost was based internally with staff that have been working in the city in that area for decades, and also the outgoing assistant general manager of technical services. So the actual budget number was produced internally, and we looked for the best value proposal that we could get.
No, I'm supportive. I'm just curious.
Councilmember Wolf, you have a question?
So it's my understanding that some of the pipes, the interceptors and things are so old and the connections are so complex that we don't even know exactly how it's mapped out right now. Is that correct?
The system is very old. It's very complex. And so the approach that we're taking in this study is actually, like we said, a quantitative objective study. We're going to do a lot of flow monitoring, and beyond just the monitoring we did back in 2000 and 2002, we're taking that and building out our existing model, so our hydraulic models, so that we can better predict future flows based on that data. And so if we have more growth or if we have more rainfall, we can use that model to better predict the future flow needs and be able to plan long-term, potentially saving well over $6 million.
Madam Chair, if I may, Councilmember Wolf, a good example of the question that you raised is that 6, 7, 8 years ago, the city of Minneapolis did a similar type flow study with metering, and what they found was in the southern part of the city, there were a number of these, they call them passive diversion structures, so that when part of the system gets overtaxed, the flow kind of surcharges a little bit. The system is built in such a way that then the flow can flow into a different service area, and that diversion actually represents a change of flow within the regional system. It goes from one interceptor to the other. And the city was aware that there were a few of these that were out in the system, but once they started doing their flow metering and started locating, there were dozens of these things in the system. So I think this study that will be done in collaboration with the city of Minneapolis will even provide better light in terms of exactly how that system works, both the regional system and the city system. But there are a number of little nuances out there that I think are yet to be discovered.
Councilmember Wolf.
So when this is done, will we have, kind of a full 3D model of where everything is and know what we actually have?
Councilmember Wolf, 3D maybe not, but yeah, the idea is that the hydraulic models that exist today are much better than what we used back 10 or so years ago. We should have a much better understanding of how flows come into and out of our system. We'll also be able to not only inform our decisions, but as Kyle mentioned, we'll be working with the city of Minneapolis to make sure that they're doing their flow monitoring at the same time and informing each other's decisions, so we can make a more collaborative approach over the next couple decades.
So the communities upstream from Minneapolis, Anoka, and is it Ramsey that I saw here?
Mm-hmm.
Are they involved in this at all? Are we going to be looking at anything that's happening up there, or is it just in the bounds of Minneapolis?
Chair Rummel, we'll use the data to inform upstream as well. It's just that area of the city that area of our system is very old, and it's kind of the pinch point of the system. So this also comes with a memorandum of understanding with the city of Minneapolis that we'll be collaborating efforts to reduce I&I and to do system investigations.
Councilmember Molander.
So this system, I mean, this, we didn't even exist when some of this stuff went in the ground, did it?
Correct.
So this was put in by the city of Minneapolis, or some group,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, portions of
whoever
the
it might
system.
be.
Yeah, some of these are, yeah.
But it's ours now.
Mhm.
Okay.
I'd like to make the motion to approve. Chair Romo?
I would second. I think we desperately need to do this.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
I,
Opposed? Thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you.
Now we move to item 2018-177,
We're 100 years old.
and this is going to be about a public hearing for the draft Metro Plant Solids Management Facility Plan. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I seem to always do that to you unintentionally.
I
Have a
know,
lot
I
of
know.
words.
Complained about it before. It's all yours, Renee.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, council members. My name is Renee Heflin. I am Manager of Plant Engineering Technical Services. I am here to present business item 2018-177, public hearing on the draft Metro Plant Solids Management Improvements Facility Plan. Madam Chair and council members, we begin system-wide solids planning studies at the wastewater treatment plants in 2011. Those studies have produced 3 facility plans. The first facility plan is solids improvements at the Empire wastewater treatment plant. That project is currently under design. The second facility plan is solids improvements at the Seneca wastewater treatment plant. That project is currently under construction. The third facility plan is this one for the Metro plant. So this facility plan focuses on equipment and facilities in the solids management building. The building, which was constructed in 2005, houses 3 fluid bed incinerators, energy recovery equipment, and air pollution control equipment. The facility plan proposes to construct a 3rd incinerator because it is the most cost-effective and sustainable alternative to meet the region's wastewater needs. This work supports the Thrive outcomes of stewardship and sustainability. The Metro plant needs additional solids treatment capacity to preserve existing wastewater treatment plant infrastructure and to serve regional population growth. By the time the project is constructed, the existing incinerators will be 20 years old. They will need to be taken out of service one at a time for periods of up to 6 to 12 months. We need additional capacity to ride through those periods of renewal. The Metro plant service area is anticipated to grow at a rate of approximately 500,000 residents in 30 years. The planning period for this facility plan is through the year 2050. We evaluated a wide range of alternatives against multiple factors, focusing on economic considerations, air quality, energy recovery, and hauling impact. The original list of alternatives was narrowed down to the 4 alternatives shown here, which are the most cost-effective and maximize the life of the existing incinerators. The first alternative adds a 4th incinerator. The second alternative adds digester facilities to digest a portion of the solids, followed by incineration in the existing incineration units. The third alternative adds dryer facilities for the production of a biosolids product that can be sold as a fertilizer. This is similar to what we do at our Blue Lake plant. The fourth alternative adds digester and land application facilities for the production of biosolids that can be used as a soil amendment. This is similar to what we do at our Empire wastewater treatment plant. Due to the size of the Metro plant, adding a 4th incinerator costs 50% less than the lowest cost digestion alternative to construct, operate, and maintain. The fourth incinerator also provides for continuity with existing facility operating requirements, and it maximizes our investment in the existing incinerators. Our evaluation included the sustainability components listed here, comparisons for air emissions, energy recovery, greenhouse gas emissions, and reuse potential. The fourth incinerator has the lowest air emissions than any other alternative. The fourth incinerator also has excellent energy recovery capabilities. All alternatives have comparable greenhouse gas emission, and this is because greenhouse gas emissions from wastewater treatment plants really aren't a factor in the Twin Cities area. All alternatives have comparable nutrient recovery in terms of phosphorus. With the Metro plant ash, it's high in phosphorus and micronutrients. It has potential for beneficial reuse as a phosphorus fertilizer. MCS is currently exploring this use with the University of Minnesota. The University of Minnesota is conducting a 3-year crop study. We are 2 years into that study, and the results look very promising. The recommended plan is to construct a fourth incinerator, followed by renewal of existing incineration facilities. The total estimated project cost is $180 million. This is the concept drawing showing the new incinerator in a small 22,000 square foot building extension of the existing solids management building at Metro. The addition is a bump out that parallels the existing 3 incinerators. Communications planning included internal and external outreach. Public outreach was initiated after our presentation to the Committee of the Whole in April of this year. We contacted many stakeholders, and let me read those out, including local governments, regulatory agencies, neighborhood districts, community organizations, environmental advocacy groups, and businesses along Childs Road. We contacted these groups by phone, email, and regular mail. On June 13th, we held an open house at the Wellstone Center located in St. Paul for stakeholders to come and learn about the Metro plant incineration process. I'm very excited. Next, I want to share with you one of the how it works informational videos that were shown at the open house. Greg, please run video 1.
There we go.
Hey.
Wastewater treatment produces sludge, also known as biosolids, that treatment plants must process separately. Biosolids are a renewable, carbon-based fuel source that burns similar to wood or coal. Challenges we face in treating biosolids include 1. Removing liquids to reduce volume. This makes handling easier and more efficient. 2. Stabilization to remove disease-causing bacteria. This is done using heat. And 3. Recovering energy to generate heat and electricity. This greatly reduces our plant's energy costs. At the Metro plant, we collect biosolids from the bottom of settling tanks that span 18 acres. That's the size of about 13 football fields. Initially, the settled biosolids are about 1% solids and 99% liquids by weight. Then, gravity thickeners and flotation thickeners begin removing water from the biosolids. In our solids management building, centrifuges further concentrate the biosolids. At this point, we have a product called cake that is suitable for incineration. To learn more, please visit our project website or contact our project team.
Cool. Ironic name, cake.
Hopefully get this back. I have a few, Madam Chair, I have a few
Sure.
more slides.
Greg, can you please bring back up the PowerPoint? Apparently not.
We have it here in front of us if you want to keep going.
Sure. The next slide is the proposed project schedule. We propose to hold a public hearing for this facility plan. Is it August 30th of this year? Pending council adoption of the facility plan, we would initiate design early next year in 2019. Construction of the fourth incinerator would occur 2021 through 2024. Then the existing incinerators would be renewed 2025 through 2027.
And if I can interrupt, then this should hold us until 2050. Is that what I heard you say earlier?
Madam Chair, for planning purposes, that was the capacity requirement for the alternatives.
Okay.
And our experience, Madam Chair, is that we're doing renewals about every 10 years, smaller renewals, and we're saving up this larger one for that 20-year period. So maybe every 10 years.
Sounds good.
Staff recommends that the Metropolitan Council authorize a public hearing on the draft Metro Plant Solids Management Facility Plan, MCS project number 806210.
Questions, Councilmember
And
Melander?
I've asked this question before, but I forget things, so if it's not on a post-it note. So, who's the designer of the last one? Because I remember the project. What was it?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Melander, that was a design build contract, the first one. So Von Roll had the design engineer, and the council's representative engineer was CH2M Hill.
So my question is, so do we, because of the existing incinerators, do we have to use the same group?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Melander, we are not obligated to use the same group.
So there isn't some proprietary relationship that we have with the other three burners or whatever we have?
No, sir.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? It's kind of impressive that it's a 50%, costs less 50% to do this than to do the other alternatives that you investigated. Very interesting.
Yeah.
If there are no further questions, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is approved. Thank you very much, Renee. The last item on our business agenda here is the adoption of the Southeast Metro Water Reclamation Facility Plan. And Deborah Manning is going to come back and tell us more about this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, council members. My presentation today is business item 2018-178 SW, the adoption of the facility plan for the Southeast Metro Water Reclamation Facility. This presentation summarizes the public process for the draft facility plan for the proposed Southeast Metro Water Reclamation Facility. And first, I'd like to thank you, Chair Rummel, and also Council Members Chavez and Wolf for your presence and assistance during this process. We had 2 public information meetings and a public hearing in Rosemont and Inver Grove Heights, and public comment on the draft facility plan closed on June 11th. And we're here today to request adoption of the draft facility plan and will be at the council meeting tomorrow. If adopted, staff would submit the draft facility plan to the MPCA and the PFA for further consideration in their loan application process. And as you probably recall, the Southeast Metro Water Reclamation Facility would take effluent from the Empire Wastewater Treatment Plant, treat it, divert about 1.6 million gallons a day from the outfall from the plant, treat it to the higher level needed for wastewater reuse, and then pump it and pipe it to the proposed SKB Enercom facility in Inver Grove Heights. And that facility would take municipal solid waste and convert it into energy products. The cost estimate for MCS's facilities is approximately $27.7 million. And that includes construction costs with contingency, engineering and administrative costs, inflation, land acquisition, and permitting. And those costs would be recovered from the user minus any regional cost share that is deemed to be appropriate. The proposed schedule for the project is we're right now in that June timeframe with the considering adoption of the facility plan. We would, if adopted, the staff would submit that to the MPCA, as I mentioned, in July. Final design and construction and commissioning is the schedule for that is to be determined based on decision making by SKB and Enercom. And what we have heard from them recently is that they're projecting needing reclaimed water delivery in the late 2020 or 2021 timeframe. This slide summarizes the public comments, and also in the business item you received a table summary and also of formal comments, and then the transcript from the public hearing. And you also received copies of any comment that we received in writing. We received 10 formal comments, one from an energy utility, one from a Rosemont Utility Commission member, 2 from local businesses, 2 from local residents, 3 from union representatives, and 1 from the mayor of Inver Grove Heights. Basically, the comments fell in about 4 areas. 2 of them noted that coordination with local businesses would be needed and utilities during the construction process. 6 supported wastewater reuse in general and MCS's project in particular. 2 of the comments expressed concern about Enercom as a corporation. They noted that their facility in Edmonton had been behind schedule and over budget. And 1 requested that the council consider making the wastewater reclamation facility larger and market potential reuse in Rosemont. This public process was in alignment with the Thrive MSP 2040 lens in the council's stated role as pursuing wastewater reuse where economically feasible as a means to promote sustainable water resources, and the water resources policy plan laying out policies in really 3 areas of working with our partners, maximizing regional benefits from regional investments, and providing efficient, high quality, sustainable wastewater services. The proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council adopt the facility plan for the Southeast Metro Wastewater Reclamation Facility, MCS project number 809-100, per the attached resolution number 2018-7. Madam Chair, that concludes my presentation, and I welcome any questions or comments.
Thank you. Now, if I'm not mistaken, it was Member Wolf that chaired one of the public hearings. Yes. So I want to acknowledge that. Early in the presentation, you listed I'm trying to find the slide, the time frame of the plan. So is the negotiating memorandum of understanding still going on, or has that been completed?
It has not been, Madam Chair, it has not been completed. It's basically a bit on hold. SKB and Enercom are going through their corporate decision-making process, which they've told us they will complete in the July-August timeframe. And so we have sent to them a draft memorandum of understanding. We've talked about it. They say it's with their lawyers right now, but we are awaiting their corporate decision-making.
So we're being asked to consider the facility plan before that's complete.
Madam Chair, yes, and the reason for that is so that we can continue the process of applying for PFA loan funds.
I forgot that.
That process is basically a multi-year process, and we want to stay in line for those loan funds.
Other questions from the committee?
Move approval?
Hearing
Second.
none. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion prevails.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Well, that concludes the business portion of this meeting, and we have just the general manager's report, and Janine's going to sit in for us.
Yes, I am. Madam Chair, members of the council, I just wanted to remind you that the U.S. Water Alliance is hosting their National One Water Summit in the Twin Cities next week, July 10th through the 12th. The main location is the Hyatt Regency in downtown Minneapolis. And of course, the Metropolitan Council is the summit's local host partner, with our chair, Aline Churumoff, providing opening remarks, and General Manager Lisa Thompson being part of the panel featured at the July 11th plenary session. And I also want to note that the governor has been invited, but is not yet confirmed to speak at one of the luncheons on the opening day. The summit is sold out. There's over 800 attendees that are registered at this point. This is a preeminent venue for water stakeholders, both public, private, and nonprofit, who want to accelerate the adoption of an integrated, equitable, and sustainable approach to water resource management. Several council members and staff across the council from MCES, as well as community development, regional parks, and the Office of Diversity will be attending, so we'll have a good presence there. And I would offer also that we have mobile site visits to a variety of local innovative water practices, projects, and initiatives that are offered on advanced water reuse technology, building green infrastructure, One Water research, sustainable flood control, perennial crops as food and fuel, and water reuse in native nations. So I think this is going to be a pretty wonderful summit. A unique feature of the summit is the presence of locally based delegations organized around a specific water interest or need, who pledge specific actions to be taken in the coming year. So we have another video. I know that we're not we're not big on videos, but we have a second video to show you today. So Greg, if you could hit video 2.
Oh, that was awesome.
Okay, the door.
have any questions, I think Susan can help you if you have any questions about registration, but thank you very much.
Any other information for the good of the group? If not, we can adjourn this meeting.